Spend enough money on your home, and you start to believe the market will pay you back. That assumption is behind almost every renovation mistake I am covering today. 11 upgrades, things that look smart, feel premium, and cost real money, that can damage your resale value, complicate your appraisal, or shrink the pool of buyers who can even finance your home. One is something buyers specifically ask sellers to remove before they will close. One appraisers cannot legally give full credit for, regardless of what it cost. At least a few are probably on your renovation list right now. There is a category of financial mistake in real estate that almost nobody warns you about, because it requires doing something first. The stories you usually hear involve sellers who neglected their homes, priced too high, or took bad photographs. This video is about something different. These are homeowners who did the work, hired the contractors, paid the invoices, lived with the result for years, and then sat across from a buyer's offer that was lower than the neighbor who did nothing. What makes that happen? Two things. The first is a concept called contributory value. An appraiser is not interested in what something cost you. They are interested in what comparable homes in your neighborhood have sold for. Worser man nasor wanber was wanderer your winter, and what adjustments those comps support. If the market has never rewarded a particular upgrade, the appraiser cannot credit yours, regardless of the quality or the invoice. The second is buyer preference disconnect. What renovation television celebrates and what buyers in a specific price tier actually want are not always the same list. The gap between those two realities is where seller equity disappears. Some of the upgrades on this list simply fail to return what they cost. Others actively reduce the number of buyers who can finance your home. And a few create documentation problems that surface at the worst possible time, when you are already under contract and unwinding the deal is painful for everyone. These are counted down from 11 to 1, ordered by how often and how severely they cost sellers real money. 11 will sting. 1 will make you rethink something you may have already done. Number 11, an ultra-high-end kitchen in a mid-range neighborhood. The kitchen is universally cited as the most important room in the house, and there is truth in it. A functional, clean, well-organized kitchen matters to buyers at every price point. The mistake is not renovating the kitchen. The mistake is spending $60,000, $70,000, or $80,000 on a custom kitchen inside a home that sits in a neighborhood where properties sell between $250,000 and $350,000. That is over-improvement, and the market will treat it that way. Here is how appraisers think about this. When they value your home, they start with comparable sales, homes nearby, similar in size and age, that have actually sold. If those comps do not support a value high enough to justify your renovation cost, the appraiser cannot create that number. The neighborhood has a ceiling. Your invoice does not raise it. The NAR cost versus value report consistently shows that major kitchen remodels recover well under their full cost nationally, and that gap grows wider in lower price tiers. What buyers see in a mid-range market is equally telling. A $70,000 kitchen in a neighborhood of $280,000 homes reads as a mismatch. Some buyers feel out of place. Others assume the seller is pricing above the neighborhood and resist from the beginning. A clean, updated kitchen in the right proportion to the home will outperform a showroom installation in the wrong zip code every time. Number 10, an in-ground pool in the wrong market. The pool conversation is almost entirely a regional one. In certain Sunbelt markets, parts of Florida, Arizona, the Las Vegas Valley, a pool may be standard enough that its absence creates a disadvantage. Buyers expect it. In those markets, a pool can be genuinely neutral to positive. Take that same pool to Ohio, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, or the mountain states and the math flips. The seasonal window shrinks to 3 or 4 months. Insurance premiums rise, maintenance costs, chemicals, equipment, service continue every year regardless of how often anyone swims. And there is a buyer demographic reality that sellers rarely anticipate. Families with young children actively filter out pool homes on listing platforms. That is a measurable reduction in your buyer pool before a single showing happens. Sellers who installed pools at $40,000 or $60,000 expect that investment to appear in their appraised value. Appraisers work from market data, not installation costs. If comparable sales in the neighborhood don't reflect a meaningful premium for pools, the appraisal cannot justify one. For buyers who specifically don't want a pool, The response is either a price reduction to offset the perceived liability or a conversation about removal. Demolishing an in-ground pool runs from $5,000 to well over $15,000, depending on method and location. That number tends to come as a surprise to sellers. It should not. Number 9, converting the garage into living space. This one feels like pure logic. More finished square footage equals more value. Sellers who need a home office, a workout room, or an extra bedroom look at the garage and see unused potential. The conversion happens: drywall, flooring, a split system HVAC unit. And then the home goes on the market missing something most buyers expect. In most American markets, a 2-car garage is not a bonus. It is an expectation at certain price points. Its absence reduces the pool of comparable properties an appraiser can use to value your home. Homes with garages get compared to homes with garages. Remove it, and the resulting adjustments often don't favor the seller. Buyers who own more than one vehicle, keep recreational equipment, store tools, or simply value covered parking will filter your home out. That is a segment of the buyer pool gone, not because of price, but because of a listing detail. The permitting question compounds everything. If the garage conversion was unpermitted, the converted space may not qualify as heated conditioned square footage under appraisal standards. FHA and VA loan programs carry minimum property standards that unpermitted conversions can violate. If the buyer is using one of those loan types, the unpermitted space may become a loan condition, requiring remediation before closing. A problem that surfaces at the worst possible moment. If you are planning a renovation and this video is making you rethink any of it, save it now and share it with someone else who should see this before they spend. Every invoice you have paid for your home belongs to you. The buyer does not inherit it. The appraiser cannot credit what comparable sales don't support. The home improvement industry is structured around the cost of renovation. The resale market is structured around what buyers in your specific zip code and price tier will actually pay. Those two systems are independent of each other, and assuming they are connected is where seller equity quietly disappears. The next 8 entries are where that gap gets wider. Number 8, an over-customized master suite addition. A master suite addition, spa bath, custom closet, steam shower, radiant floor heating, is one of the highest satisfaction projects a homeowner can undertake. The problem is not the addition itself. The problem emerges when the addition pushes the home significantly above neighborhood comparables in size. If your neighborhood consists of homes between 1,800 and 2,200 square feet and your addition takes the home to 3,500 square feet, the appraiser faces an immediate challenge. Comparable sales in that size range may not exist nearby. The adjustments available are capped by what the market has actually transacted, not what your project cost. And the custom features, steam shower, radiant floor, custom millwork, do not automatically transfer their cost to the buyer. A buyer who would have been satisfied with a standard bath does not pay extra for features they never asked for. There is a second problem. When the addition pushes your asking price into a higher bracket, you are competing with newer construction in better locations, larger homes in more desirable school districts, properties that buyers at that tier choose instead. The addition meant to make your home the best on the block may have priced it out of its own competitive market entirely. Number 7, replacing all flooring with hardwood or luxury vinyl plank throughout. The advice to update flooring is not wrong. Neutral, consistent, quality flooring is a real listing asset. The mistakes happen at the edges. Cheap luxury vinyl plank in a luxury tier home is not an upgrade. It signals cost-cutting to buyers who arrive expecting quality. The inverse is equally revealing. Brand new premium hardwood in a home with a 25-year-old roof reads as a seller who improved what shows and deferred what costs money. There is also a buyer preference issue that gets ignored in the blanket recommendation to eliminate carpet everywhere. Some buyer segments, families, buyers in cold climate markets, want carpet in bedrooms. Removing it entirely can polarize the audience. A buyer who planned to add carpet to the master bedroom now sees a project instead of a finished home. If the flooring color or species reflects the seller's personal taste rather than neutral appeal, buyers who arrive with different preferences may factor a replacement into their offer. Appraisers handle flooring adjustments modestly in most frameworks. The full cost of a whole home flooring replacement rarely translates into appraised value. The correct approach is selective, neutral, and proportional to the price tier of the home. Number 6, removing walls to create an open floor plan. Open concept dominates renovation television, listing descriptions, and buyer preference surveys. Sellers absorb this, look at the wall between their kitchen and living room, and make a decision. The execution is where serious problems begin. A load-bearing wall is a structural element. Removing one without engineering review and a building permit, required in nearly every municipality, is a structural modification with documentation requirements and disclosure obligations. Home inspectors are trained to find unpermitted structural changes. When they flag one, lenders take notice. FHA and VA loans may require remediation before the loan can close. Proper load-bearing wall removal, engineering review, beam specification, installation, and finish work can run from $10,000 to $30,000 or more, depending on span and local pricing. When done improperly and discovered during inspection, the remediation cost does not disappear. It transfers to the negotiation at exactly the moment the seller has least leverage. The buyer psychology question also deserves consideration. Open floor plan preference is not universal. Buyers with children who need sound containment, remote workers who need dedicated office space, buyers who prefer acoustic separation. These are real buyer profiles who may specifically prefer walls. The renovation meant to appeal to everyone may have narrowed the audience instead. The pattern in everything covered so far is worth naming. The seller made decisions that serve their own comfort and enjoyment of the home. That is perfectly reasonable while you live there. The moment the home goes on the market, the audience changes entirely. Buyers pay for what the home allows them to do, how they can finance it, insure it, and live in it daily, and whether it compares favorably to everything else available at that price. The upgrades that fail to account for that shift are the ones that cost the most. The next 5 entries are where that cost becomes the most direct. Number 5. Adding a sunroom or 4-season room without proper permitting. Enclosing a porch or deck to create additional interior space looks like living square footage. The seller paid to enclose it, added heat and cooling, and listed the footage on the MLS. Everything appears in order until the appraiser arrives. For square footage to count in a home's gross living area, it must typically be heated and cooled to the same standard as the rest of the structure, finished to comparable quality, and in most jurisdictions, permitted. A sunroom enclosed without a permit, or a 4-season room that is not conditioned to the same degree as the main house, often cannot be included in the gross living area. The appraiser may exclude it entirely. When the MLS lists 2,200 square feet and the appraiser counts 1,800, the appraised value is built on 1,800 square foot comparable sales. That gap produces a measurable shortfall. If the appraised value comes in below the contract price, the lender will not finance the difference. The deal renegotiates, the seller reduces price to meet the appraisal, or the buyer walks. Sellers who listed unpermitted square footage without disclosure face legal exposure that varies by state, but is real in most markets. This is a problem addressable before listing with a straightforward county permit review. Instead, it surfaces under contract, where resolving it costs far more in every respect. Number 4. Installing solar panels on a lease. The solar industry has effectively marketed leased panels as an upgrade that adds value. For homeowners who plan to stay indefinitely, a lease may make financial sense in the right market. For homeowners who plan to sell, a solar lease is a transaction complication that needs to be understood before it becomes a closing problem. The distinction is critical. Solar panels owned outright can contribute value in high electricity cost markets with strong solar performance and comparable sales that reflect it. Leased solar panels are not an asset. They are a contract. The seller does not own the equipment, and an appraiser cannot add value for equipment the seller does not own. A solar lease is typically a 20 to 25-year financial obligation with a third-party solar company. When the home sells, that lease must be transferred to the buyer or paid off. Buyout costs frequently reach $15,000 to $30,000 or more. Sellers often do not know this figure when they list. When a buyer wants to assume the lease, the solar company conducts its own credit review. Buyers who don't qualify or who don't want the monthly obligation cannot purchase without a buyout being arranged. That reduces the buyer pool directly. The monthly lease payment may also count toward a buyer's debt-to-income ratio during mortgage qualification, potentially disqualifying buyers who would otherwise have been approved. Leased solar in any market requires a clear look at the lease terms before the listing agreement is signed. Number 3, converting a bedroom into something else. Home offices, gyms, oversized closets, media rooms, converting a bedroom into a differently purposed space has become common, and it creates one of the more consequential errors in how a home is then listed and priced. Bedroom count is one of the primary filters appraisers use when selecting comparable properties. A 4-bedroom home is compared to 4-bedroom comparables. If one of those bedrooms was converted and no longer meets the legal definition, minimum ceiling height, egress window, closet, qualifying square footage, requirements that vary by jurisdiction, the home is effectively a 3-bedroom. When the appraiser reclassifies it, the comparable selection changes. The value changes with it. The difference between a 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom home on the same street can range from $15,000 to $40,000 in many markets. That is not a preference question. That is a structural valuation gap. The listing platform problem reinforces this. Buyers search by bedroom count. A buyer who needs 4 bedrooms will never see a 3-bedroom listing. If the seller lists the home as 4 bedrooms despite the conversion, the buyer discovers the truth during the showing, the inspection, or the appraisal. None of those moments benefit the deal. Sellers who converted a bedroom intending to restore it before listing frequently underestimate the scope of that restoration and don't complete it in time. The final 2 entries are the ones sellers defend most confidently. They involve spending in categories that sound responsible and even impressive. They are also where the gap between what sellers believe they built and what the market will recognize tends to be the largest. Number 2, over-improving the landscaping and outdoor features. Basic curb appeal matters. A clean, well-maintained exterior improves buyer first impressions and is worth the investment. The mistake is the leap from basic curb appeal to a $40,000 outdoor kitchen, a 12-zone irrigation system, a built-in fire pit, a professional pergola, and premium hardscape, installed with the expectation that buyers will value it near cost. They will not, and appraisers face genuine constraints in crediting it. Landscaping and outdoor improvements are among the most difficult categories to work with because comparable sales rarely isolate these features precisely enough to support specific adjustments. An outdoor kitchen costing $30,000 may receive an appraisal credit of $5,000 to $10,000 if surrounding sold comps don't reflect buyers paying more for similar setups. The remainder does not return. What buyers perceive also varies by market tier. In a luxury market with a warm climate, high-end outdoor space may be expected, meaning its presence prevents a negative perception rather than creating a premium. In a mid-range market, an elaborate outdoor kitchen reads to many buyers as a maintenance obligation. Someone who does not entertain outdoors does not pay for the equipment to do it. A complex irrigation system or a large pergola signals. This requires tending and ongoing cost. Buyers who didn't want that responsibility either reduce their offer or move elsewhere. The regional reality sharpens this further. The same outdoor kitchen that is usable year-round in a warm climate market becomes a 4-month-per-year installation in the Midwest or Northeast. That seasonal math belongs to the buyer, not the seller. Number 1, finishing a basement without permits and counting it in your listed square footage. This earns the top position for reasons that compound on each other. It is extremely common. It involves real money. Finishing a basement can run from $30,000 to $80,000 or more, depending on quality and scope. It creates an appraisal conflict that is structurally difficult to resolve. It generates a financing failure at precisely the worst moment. And in a number of states, it carries disclosure liability that sellers did not anticipate when they started the project. Here is the technical reality. Below-grade square footage, regardless of how well it is finished, what it contains, or what it cost, is not counted in above-grade gross living area under standard appraisal methodology. The American National Standards Institute guidelines and Fannie Mae requirements that govern conventional loan appraisals are clear on this. A finished basement may receive a below-grade adjustment reflecting what the market credits for that space. It cannot be equated to above-grade living area. Those are different measurements that produce different values. What this means practically, a seller who lists a home at 2,400 square feet, including 800 square feet of finished basement, is advertising a number the appraiser will not confirm. The appraiser counts 1,600 square feet of above-grade gross living area and selects comparables accordingly. 1,600 square foot comparables produce a different value conclusion than 2,400 square foot comparables. That square footage gap creates a direct and measurable gap in appraised value. When the appraisal comes in below the contract price, the lender bases the loan on the appraised figure. The buyer must cover the difference in cash, the price gets renegotiated, or the deal falls apart. Now layer in the permit problem. If the basement was finished without pulling a permit, and a significant portion of these projects are done without one, the inspector flags it, the lender may flag it, and FHA and VA loan programs may require remediation as a condition of approval. The seller who was confident in their $60,000 of finished space is now defending it under contract, with a buyer's attorney, a lender's underwriter, and a closing timeline applying pressure simultaneously. The point is not that a finished basement has no value, it has genuine lifestyle value, functional value, storage value, the kind of value people who live in the home feel daily. The point is that sellers who count it as above-grade square footage and price accordingly are setting up a conflict between what they believe the home is worth and what an appraiser is required by methodology to conclude. That conflict surfaces at the worst possible time, in the most expensive possible way. These 11 upgrades share a common story. Real money was spent. The work was done with good intentions. The seller had every reason to believe the investment was sound. Then the market applied its own filters. What are repeatazowak nurs wantoan wak? What an appraiser can credit against comparable sales. What a buyer can finance given how the home is documented and how the property compares to everything else available in that price range. Those three filters do not consult the seller's invoice. Before any significant renovation, I would ask those questions first. Does the neighborhood support this cost at resale? Can I document it properly? Permitted, conditioned, correctly classified? Does this expand or narrow my buyer pool? The ones on this list that become regrets are the ones done without those answers. The ones worth doing are done with them. Tell me in the comments which of these surprised you or which one you are currently navigating on a home you are planning to sell. I am building the other side of this list, the renovations that genuinely do return their cost at resale and the market data behind them. Subscribe before that one goes up. There is a contractor invoice and an appraisal report. One reflects what you paid to improve the home. The other reflects what comparable buyers in that neighborhood have actually paid for homes like yours. The gap between those two documents is the story behind every entry on this list. Sellers who understand that gap before they renovate protect their equity. The ones who discover it under contract pay for it twice.